This has been a long time coming, and it is clear when you look at the building, a lot of work has been done to get it ready for its grand opening.
The Fontainebleau was supposed to be Las Vegas's next luxury icon. Instead, it became a $3.7 billion financial disaster. Behind the glossy marketing were pricing scandals, questionable deals, and decisions so bad they nearly erased the project entirely. So, how did one of the most expensive resorts ever built go this wrong? The $3.7 billion dream that turned into a nightmare. At first, the Fontainebleau was supposed to be a shining miracle on the Las Vegas Strip. People were told it would be a place where luxury met imagination, where money, beauty, and success would blend into one unforgettable experience. The plan sounded perfect. A massive blue glass tower rising above the desert, filled with expensive rooms, fine dining, high-end shopping, and non-stop excitement. Investors believed they were backing the future of Vegas. Visitors were promised something fresh and powerful. But from the very beginning, the dream was built on shaky ground. The price tag alone made people pause. Over $3.7 billion was poured into this single project. That number was so large, it almost stopped feeling real. Every corner of the building was designed to scream wealth. Imported materials, giant ballrooms, oversized suites, and details meant to impress the richest guests in the world. On paper, it looked unstoppable. Yet quietly, behind the scenes, problems were already growing. Costs kept rising, plans kept changing, and deadlines slowly stopped meaning anything. Construction dragged on far longer than promised. Each delay made investors more nervous, but public excitement was kept alive with big words and shiny previews. The story being told was always positive. Everything was under control. Everything would be worth it. But reports later showed that money was being burned faster than expected. Bills stacked up. Decisions were rushed. Some choices made little sense, even to people inside the project. Still, the spending continued, almost as if stopping was never an option.
Officially has a grand opening date. 16 years after construction began, Fontainebleau will open its doors to the public on December 13th.
Then came the first major collapse. The project ran out of money before it could open. A building meant to symbolize success became a giant, unfinished reminder of failure. The Strip watched as this massive tower stood silent for years. No guests, no music, no lights, just glass and steel reflecting the sun, holding billions of dollars that were going nowhere. For many investors, this was the moment hope turned into fear. They began asking questions that had been ignored for too long. Years later, new owners stepped in and promised a fresh start. The message was simple: the past was gone, and the future would be brighter. The building was completed, polished, and finally opened to the public. On the outside, it looked like the dream had returned. But once guests walked inside, cracks started to show again. People noticed prices that felt shockingly high, even by Vegas standards. Basic services came with extra charges. Small things added up fast. Visitors who expected luxury felt confused, even cheated. Complaints began to spread. Some guests said the value did not match the cost. Others felt the pricing was designed to squeeze every dollar possible, without giving enough in return. For a place built to win trust back, this was dangerous. The feeling that something was off returned quickly. Online reviews grew harsher. The excitement faded faster than anyone expected. Once again, Fontainebleau was being talked about, but not for the reasons it wanted. Behind the scenes, workers and insiders described confusion and pressure. Systems were complex. Decisions felt disconnected from reality. It seemed like lessons from the first failure had not fully been learned. The same pattern appeared again. Big promises, high spending, and risky choices, all while hoping the brand name alone could carry the weight. What makes this story hit harder is that Las Vegas has seen success stories before. Other resorts faced trouble and recovered by listening, adapting, and respecting both guests and investors. Fontainebleau, however, felt trapped by its own size and ambition. It was built too big, too expensive, and too confident in a market that had already changed. By now, many people are no longer asking if this was just bad luck. They are asking if warning signs were ignored on purpose. Was this simply poor management, or was the system designed in a way that allowed waste, confusion, and questionable pricing to thrive? The answers are uncomfortable, and they lead directly into deeper concerns about money trails, hidden decisions, and who truly benefited while others paid the price. And as the lights of the Strip continue to glow outside, one question hangs heavy in the air. If billions could vanish inside one beautiful building, what else was happening behind those closed doors that the public never saw? That question pulls us straight into the next part of this story, where the real money trail begins to unfold. Years of delays and red flags no one wanted to see. As the excitement faded, attention slowly shifted away from the shiny walls and expensive decor and toward the money itself. People began to wonder how a project with such a massive budget could still feel unstable. $3.7 billion is not small money. It is the kind of amount that should cover mistakes, delays, and even bad luck. Yet, Fontainebleau kept stumbling, and that pushed many to look deeper. When they did, the story became far more troubling. Reports that surfaced later showed that the flow of money inside the project was messy and hard to follow. Funds moved through many layers, passing from investors to developers, then to contractors, consultants, and partners. With so many hands involved, it became difficult to track who approved what and why certain costs exploded. Some expenses appeared far higher than normal for similar projects on the Strip. Simple tasks came with premium price tags. Changes were made midway, forcing rework and wasting millions. Each decision drained more cash, but accountability felt thin. Investors who once trusted the vision started asking for explanations. Many felt shut out. Updates were vague. Numbers were hard to confirm. The clearer picture only came after damage had already been done. Some backers later claimed they were not fully told how risky the situation had become. By the time reality caught up, their money was already locked in, and there was little they could do but watch. Then, there were the partnerships. Fontainebleau was not run by just one mind or one company. Different groups had different goals. Some wanted long-term success, while others focused on short-term gains. This imbalance created tension. Decisions were sometimes made to protect one side, even if it hurt the whole project. That kind of environment can quietly turn dangerous, especially when billions are involved and no single voice takes full responsibility. As reopening plans moved forward, spending did not slow down. Instead, it shifted. Money poured into branding, luxury finishes, and marketing designed to sell an image of perfection. The problem was that the image cost far more than it returned. Pricing strategies leaned heavily toward charging top dollar, assuming guests would accept anything labeled high-end. But Vegas visitors are smart. They compare values. When prices feel forced rather than earned, trust breaks fast. Guests soon noticed strange patterns. Room rates jumped suddenly. Extra charges appeared without clear explanation. Services that felt basic were priced like rare treats. For many visitors, the experience felt less like luxury and more like pressure. Spend more, pay more, accept less. Complaints spread not because people hated spending money, but because they felt the system was designed to quietly take advantage of them. Behind all this, questions about where the earlier billions went refused to disappear. Some analysts pointed to overbuilding, others blamed poor planning. But a louder concern grew around whether waste and mismanagement were simply brushed aside because the money seemed endless. When projects grow too large, losses can hide inside the scale. A few million here, a few million there, until the total becomes shocking. What made things worse was the silence. There were no clear public breakdowns explaining how mistakes happened or how they would be fixed. Instead, the message remained polished and optimistic, even as problems repeated themselves. That gap between what was said and what was felt created suspicion. People began to wonder if the truth was being softened to protect reputations rather than repair damage. For workers inside the building, pressure increased. Targets were high. Expectations were unrealistic. Some staff felt caught between unhappy guests and management decisions they could not control. This only added to the feeling that the system was strained from top to bottom. A luxury resort should feel smooth and confident. Fontainebleau often felt tense and reactive. At this stage, the story was no longer just about a failed dream. It became about responsibility. When billions are raised, spent, and lost, someone always benefits, while others suffer. Investors lost trust. Guests lost confidence. Workers felt uncertain. Yet the machine kept moving, asking for more money, more patience, and more belief. That is why the focus now turned sharper. Because once pricing complaints and delays are stripped away, the biggest mystery remains untouched. Who truly gained from this chaos, and who quietly carried the cost? To answer that, the trail must be followed deeper, into the decisions, the deals, and the figures hidden far from public view. And that is where this story becomes even more unsettling. Inside the money trail, as more people walked through the doors, the real test began. This was the moment Fontainebleau needed to win hearts, not just headlines. Guests arrived with high hopes, believing the long wait and massive spending would finally make sense. But for many, that feeling faded quickly. What they experienced did not always match what they were promised, and the disappointment spread faster than any advertisement could fix. The first shock often came at check-in. Room prices looked high, even before extras were added. Then came the small charges that did not feel small at all. Resort fees, service costs, and add-ons appeared quietly, stacking up until guests felt trapped in a game they never agreed to play. People were not upset about luxury pricing alone. Vegas is built on expensive experiences. The anger came from confusion. Many felt the costs were unclear, sudden, and impossible to avoid. Some guests described paying premium prices for services that felt average. Rooms looked stylish, but lacked the warmth and care expected at that level. Dining options were priced like five-star experiences, yet portions and service often fell short. Even simple requests felt complicated. For visitors who saved for months to enjoy a special trip, this gap between price and value felt personal. They did not feel treated like valued guests. They felt treated like numbers. Online reactions quickly reflected this mood. Reviews spoke of excitement turning into regret. People shared stories of unexpected bills and long waits. Others warned future visitors to read every detail before booking. In a city where reputation matters deeply, this kind of feedback is powerful. It does not just hurt one hotel. It sends a signal across the strip that something is wrong. Behind the polished front desk, smiles. Workers felt the strain too. Employees were often placed in difficult positions, expected to enforce policies they did not create. When guests complained, staff absorbed the frustration. Some workers later shared that training was rushed and systems were confusing. They were learning on the job while trying to satisfy guests who were already unhappy. That pressure created stress, not pride. Many staff members wanted the resort to succeed. They understood what Fontainebleau could have been, but high expectations were paired with limited support. Schedules were tight, targets were demanding. When problems surfaced, solutions felt slow. This gap between vision and reality affected morale. A place meant to feel exciting and confident often felt tense behind the scenes. As complaints grew, management responses felt distant. Instead of clear explanations or adjustments, changes came quietly or not at all. Prices stayed high, fees remained confusing. For guests, this silence felt like dismissal. It created the sense that feedback was being heard but not respected. In today's world, that is dangerous. People talk, stories travel, and once trust breaks, it is hard to rebuild. What hurt Fontainebleau most was the comparison. Just steps away, other resorts offered similar luxury, with clearer pricing and smoother experiences. Visitors began asking why they should pay more for less comfort. That question cut deep because it struck at the core of the brand. Fontainebleau was supposed to be different. Instead, it felt disconnected from the expectations of modern travelers. As weeks passed, the pressure increased. Discounts quietly appeared to fill rooms. Promotions replaced confidence. This shift sent another signal. If everything was going well, why the sudden need to pull people in with deals? To some observers, it looked like panic. To others, it looked like the result of poor planning finally catching up. At this point, the disaster was no longer hidden. It was visible in reviews, in staff turnover, and in the uneasy feeling that something bigger was unfolding. The pricing was not just a mistake, it was a symptom, a sign of deeper issues tied to how the project was structured and how decisions were made from the top down. People began to wonder if the focus had always been on extracting as much money as possible, rather than building long-term loyalty. That question led back to the early days of spending, partnerships, and power. Because when guests feel squeezed and workers feel unsupported, the problem rarely starts at the front desk. The story now demands a harder look, not at the prices on the bill, but at the people who set them. Who decided this strategy was smart? Who ignored the warning signs? And who stood to gain even as the experience fell apart? To understand that, we must move away from the guest floors and into the rooms where the biggest decisions were made, where money, influence, and control quietly shaped everything that followed. Luxury prices, hidden fees, and guest backlash. Away from the busy casino floor and far from the guest complaints, the real power sat in quiet rooms where decisions were made with spreadsheets, forecasts, and confidence that rarely faced the public. This was where Fontainebleau's future was shaped, not by visitors or workers, but by executives, partners, and financial planners whose choices carried enormous weight. As more details surfaced, it became clear that many of these choices were risky from the start. The project was driven by ambition more than caution. The idea was to build something so grand that it could not fail. Bigger rooms, higher ceilings, more luxury than competitors, but bigger also meant heavier. Every delay, every design change, every upgrade multiplied the cost. Instead of adjusting plans when warning signs appeared, leadership often doubled down. The belief was that once the doors opened, money would flow in fast enough to erase past mistakes. That belief shaped nearly every move. One major issue was timing. The market Fontainebleau entered was not the same one it was designed for years earlier. Travel habits had changed. Guests wanted value mixed with comfort, not just expensive beauty. Yet pricing and strategy remained stuck in an old mindset. Leadership seemed slow to accept that Vegas itself had evolved. Instead of adapting, they tried to force the market to meet their expectations. Inside, reports later suggested that decision-making was fragmented. Different teams handled different pieces, but no single group fully owned the outcome. When something went wrong, blame shifted, instead of solutions forming. This lack of clear control allowed problems to linger. Costs went unchecked. Feedback from the ground struggled to reach the top. When it did, it often arrived too late to matter. There was also pressure from investors who wanted returns quickly. Billions had already been spent, and patience was thin. That pressure pushed leadership toward aggressive pricing and rapid recovery plans. The focus turned from building trust to recouping losses. Short-term thinking replaced long-term care. This shift is often where big projects lose their soul, and Fontainebleau was no exception. Marketing played its role too. The image sold to the public remained glossy and confident, even as internal stress grew. Promotions highlighted glamour, exclusivity, and success. But when reality did not match the image, disappointment hit harder. People felt misled, not impressed. A brand can survive mistakes, but it struggles to survive broken expectations. As financial strain continued, restructuring discussions began quietly. Costs were reviewed, roles were adjusted. Some changes were made behind closed doors to stabilize the situation. But these efforts felt reactive rather than thoughtful. Instead of clear acknowledgement of what went wrong, there was a sense of patching holes to keep the ship afloat. That approach may buy time, but it rarely rebuilds trust. Industry experts began using Fontainebleau as an example of what happens when scale outruns strategy. They pointed to its massive budget, long timeline, and rigid vision as key weaknesses. In a city built on reinvention, flexibility matters. Fontainebleau struggled because it was designed to impress first and adapt later. By the time adaptation became necessary, damage was already done. Meanwhile, competitors watched closely. Some learned from the mistakes without paying the price. They invested carefully, tested pricing, and listened closely to guest feedback. Fontainebleau's struggles became an unspoken lesson across the Strip. Big does not always mean better. Expensive does not always mean desirable. For employees and guests, these executive-level choices translated into daily frustration. Policies felt cold. Experiences felt mechanical. The warmth that turns luxury into memory was missing. And when people sense that profit matters more than people, they respond by walking away. In Vegas, that choice is always just a few steps down the road. Now the conversation has shifted again. It is no longer just about delays, pricing, or poor reviews. It is about accountability. When a project this large falters, the impact spreads wide. Jobs are affected, investors lose confidence, guests lose faith, and the city's image takes a quiet hit. However, when leadership avoids clear answers and systems protect those at the top, the truth often hides in plain sight. To truly understand how Fontainebleau reached this point, the focus must narrow further. Into the deals, the incentives, and the individuals who shaped the outcome while staying safely out of view. And once those pieces come into focus, the full scale of this disaster becomes impossible to ignore. A Vegas warning. As the spotlight grew harsher, outside voices began stepping in. Analysts, industry watchers, and longtime Vegas insiders started pulling the story apart piece by piece. What they saw was not just a single mistake, but a chain of decisions that fed into each other. Fontainebleau became less of a mystery and more of a case study on how large projects can quietly collapse under their own weight. One major concern was how risk was handled. Instead of spreading danger carefully, Fontainebleau carried too much of it at once. Massive loans, heavy spending, and high expectations all leaned on the same outcome: immediate success. There was little room for slow growth or adjustment. When reality did not move as fast as the plan, stress hit every corner at once. That kind of pressure rarely ends well. Another issue was transparency. Financial details were hard to access, even for those with money on the line. Clear breakdowns of spending, losses, and recovery plans were limited. This lack of openness fed rumors and suspicion. When people cannot see what is happening, they assume the worst. In Fontainebleau's case, silence did more damage than honesty ever could. There were also questions about who carried responsibility when things went wrong. Leadership changed over time, ownership shifted, and blame blurred. With no clear face of accountability, mistakes felt unresolved. Each new phase promised improvement, yet familiar problems returned. This repeating cycle left observers wondering if anyone was truly learning from the past. The effect on investors was deep. Some walked away quietly, accepting losses as painful lessons. Others pushed back, demanding answers and stronger oversight. Trust, once broken, proved difficult to restore. Even new money approached the project cautiously, aware of its troubled history. Fontainebleau's name, once meant to signal elegance, now carried warning signs. For Las Vegas, the situation carried broader meaning. The city thrives on bold ideas, but it also depends on timing, balance, and trust. Fontainebleau challenged the belief that size alone guarantees success. It reminded developers that visitors care about experience more than spectacle. Beauty may attract attention, but value keeps people coming back. Guests continued to share mixed reactions. Some enjoyed parts of the resort and saw potential. Others felt the weight of its problems in small ways, from service delays to confusing policies. The experience felt uneven, as if the building itself was still unsure of what it wanted to be. That uncertainty shaped every interaction. Slowly, the narrative shifted. Fontainebleau was no longer judged only on its opening or its prices, but on whether it could change. Could it listen, simplify, and rebuild trust? Or would it remain stuck, chasing an image instead of meeting real needs? The answer was still unclear, and that uncertainty kept the story alive. However, it is about how ambition can blur judgment, how silence can deepen damage, and how ignoring small warnings can lead to massive loss. Fontainebleau stands as a reminder that success is not just built with money, but with humility and care. And as the Strip continues to evolve, one final question remains waiting. Will Fontainebleau learn fast enough to survive, or will it become a permanent symbol of how billions can disappear when lessons are learned too late? So, what do you make of Fontainebleau's $3.7 billion downfall? Was it mismanagement, bad luck, or a mix of both? Let this story remind us that even the biggest dreams can falter, and that understanding the hidden decisions behind the scenes matters. Share your thoughts below,